Today I'm going to be installing the new drivetrain that I have into Dig Dug. The transmission is from Summit Racing, and the transfer case and doubler came out of the wrecker and were rebuilt by Off-Road Design. The first thing I've got to do is get the truck back into the shop, and I've got something that I built for that very purpose right down here. I bolted this winch to the floor, and I've got a battery down here to hook it up to so I can pull the truck in. Dig Dug doesn't have a steering shaft in it right now, so hopefully it rolls pretty straight as I start dragging it back in. That couldn't have gone any better. I'm gonna roll underneath now and see what I need to remove to get the transmission and the transfer case out of this truck. Looks like exhaust has to come out. That cross member needs to come out. Front drive shaft, torque converter bolts, and these lines right here, and the starter. Pull the dipstick. Put a drain plug in this pan. Might be good to drain the fluid before I try to remove this. This has to come off. There's a little bit of work to do down here. I'm gonna get at it. I'm gonna remove the transmission with this truck sitting on the ground. But all that other stuff under there will be a lot easier to remove with this truck up on the air. So I'm gonna raise this up on the lift. Now I've got the truck on the lift, I can start taking off all the parts. I've got most of the stuff removed from this transmission that's holding it up in here or that's in the way so that I can't get it out. I got a couple lines I need to disconnect over on this other side. I'll drain out about half the fluid from the transmission so there's less chance of me spilling it when I take it out of here. I ended up draining most of the fluid out of the transmission, and I think that'll save me from making a big mess later. I don't know why transmission pans often don't have a drain plug in them. It makes a mess when you pull that pan off and the fluid goes everywhere. I put that plug in this pan about 15 years ago, and today I'm glad I did. The last thing I want to get off here is these torque converter bolts. It's easier to do while it's up on the stand here. Then I can lower everything back to the ground and I'll pull my transmission out on the floor, mainly because I have a transmission jack that is low. It's on the floor and I don't have a good way to grab it up here and lower it out. That would be nice, but I'm gonna use what I got. All right, let's see if I can turn this with my hands. Oh yeah, it's going. These are always tricky because the engine wants to spin. I might have to wait for Angela to get home so she can hold the pry bar on the other side to keep the flex plate from spinning while I try to break this loose. I just don't know another way. I'll figure this out and show you what I come up with. Let's see if this works. Oh, I got it. Victory. I got one. There's two more to get, but this is working. I'll show you really quick. I threaded that into the oil pan and so I could pry right there, like that. That's all I needed. Okay, try the next one. All right, that's the last one, it worked. I think we're ready to get this out now. I'm gonna take it out in pieces. I'm gonna unbolt the transfer case with this Allen wrench. I'm gonna strap it down to the jack with this strap, and we'll just try and lower it out of there. Then we'll figure out the transmission. You can see down here that the transfer case sits at a pretty steep angle. The output for the back is right here, and on the other side, but down here, is the output for the front. So the doubler that I have makes this clockable. I can adjust it so the front is higher up, but I can't go too high or I'm gonna run into my bottom of my cab here. So I gotta figure out how much I can twist it upwards without hitting something else. So that's something I'll have to figure out when I put in the new transfer case. Right now, we just need to jack this one up, lift it up on the jack here, and then I can unbolt everything, slide it back, and lower it down. All right, I think it's go time. So I've got a couple bolts down here, and one bolt up here, and one bolt up here, because these bolts already fell out on the trail somewhere, which is bad, but right now it's not a big deal. I mean, we were gonna take them out anyway, just looking it over. Okay, I gotta grab a couple of sockets and we're ready to go. Still got these back up here. I'm gonna try and get those loose. Yay! Oh, here it goes. It's opening up. Let's see if I can roll back a little bit. All right, I think we got it. Okay, we're all separated. I just gotta pull it back and ease it down. There we are, we got it, yay! Okay, let's roll this thing out of here. All right, we did it. This is what we got out. You can see it's kind of a big gangly mess. And that was a fight. Man, I was struggling under there. It was just coming a tiny bit at a time. But we worked it out, and I'm gonna roll it over to the other one and we can kind of compare them. Here they both are. This is the one that was in my truck. It's got this piece right here, which was the adapter that goes to the transmission. And instead of an adapter, this one has got the doubler on it. It still needs an adapter, a different type of adapter. But you can see that this one is angled down and the output is really low. And this one is kind of horizontal. The output over here is right next to this. So this one needs to get clocked a little bit down, but not near as much as this one is clocked down. So input, output, input, output. Both of these are NP205s. Inside, they're pretty similar to each other. They're both gonna be set up with twin stick shifters, but this one, the new one, is gonna have the doubler on it from Off-Road Design. My next step is to get the transmission out, and I think it'll be a little easier than this transfer case. I got two things that I gotta disconnect under the hood, and then we can go underneath and see what it's gonna take. Here's my bucket. Gotta disconnect this kickdown cable. And I've gotta get this transmission dipstick out. It's disconnected down there. Oh, there it goes. It pulled loose. All right, that's as loose as it's gonna get right now. It should pull out as that transmission comes down. That's everything on the top side. I'm gonna use this really long extension to get to the belt housing bolts, and I'm gonna roll underneath now and see if we can get it. All right, now I got a little bit of room to work down here. I've only got 4 bolts left on the bell housing with a really long extension here. I can get right up in there and get on these. See that one right there? It's already loose even. All right, that one's out. Okay, that one's out. 2 to go. I think that one's loose. Hey, that's coming. All right, this should just pull back nicely. Still got the shifters in the way here. Transfer case. All right, let's see if this will just nicely come back. There it is. This cable's getting snagged. I gotta go loosen it up on the top. There it is. All right, there it is. I'm gonna roll this thing out that way. I've got the transmissions out here, so this is a great time to compare the two. These two identical transmissions have some differences. This is the older 700R4 that I just took out, and this is the new 4L60E that's going in. One of the key differences is the snout on the torque converter is a little bit shorter on the 700R4. So I have an adapter bolted to the back of my engine to help that snout reach the pilot. And this new torque converter that goes in here, it's got the longer snout, so I'll go take that off in just a minute. The torque converters are a tiny bit different. The important thing that is mainly the same is the bell housing bolt pattern. GM did the whole world a solid when they made the LS engines that they didn't change the bell housing. That means a transmission from 1955 will bolt onto an engine made today. And there are some differences. They added this hole on the top, which you don't have to use if you don't have it, but you can. The new engines, they don't actually have a bolt hole drilled for this spot right here on the bell housing, but they put it on there if you're using this new transmission on an old engine. So they made things really compatible, which is awesome. The important part is they didn't change the location of the pilot holes. Those have been the same forever, so all these transmissions interchange. This older one was hydraulically controlled. It does have electrical control over here for the torque converter clutch, and then it's got a throttle valve cable over here. The newer one just has a big electrical cable over on this side that does all the shifting and the torque converter. So, few differences, mainly the same. On the back end, they have different bolt patterns, but there's plenty of adapters out there so you can hook them up to different transfer cases. Just to make sure this one's gonna work, I grabbed an old outpush shaft off a Turbo 350, should be the same size. And when I mesh this up to the splines, they fit really nice. If I put this down in the new doubler, it also fits really good. So those should bolt together really good, and they're too heavy to kind of do it on the floor here, but I feel good about it now. I really like this new torque converter. It comes from St. George Transmission. It's a heavy duty unit, and you can see there's huge welds on the lugs. The old one just has little tiny tack welds, but I guess they worked. So that's the differences between these transmissions. I will upgrade my computer so it can shift this new 4L60E. And I don't know, I'll find another project for this to go in. I'm gonna have a whole drivetrain out of my truck. This transmission is the first one I've ever built, so I kind of feel attached to it, and it should have a lot of life in it. So I gotta find some square body Chevy that this can go into, or a buggy, or anything, I guess. I also have a really nice engine over there that I wanna open up someday. That might be a really nice drivetrain. That engine, this transmission, and that transfer case. We'll scheme later. Right now I'm gonna go underneath Dig Dug and figure out how to get the adapter off of that flex plate. Okay, this is the flex plate on the back of the engine. And there's some cool things to notice. You can see there's no bolt hole here. Don't try to drill and trap one or you'll drill into a piston. And there's the extra bolt hole up there. And there's bolt holes down here that are actually on the oil pan. So that's why that bell housing looks a little bit different. And this is the adapter I was talking about. It sticks out a little bit, so it'll engage the shorter snout on the old 700R4. And I need to take it off because I don't need it with my new torque converter. So I need to take this off, but I want to leave the flex plate in place. It's perfect where it is. I just need to remove this, and then I can't put those bolts back on because they're too long. So I got to go find some old short ones. So we'll take this off really quick and go do that. That's the adapter that I need to get rid of right there. I do not need this anymore. You can see it just stuck out a little bit extra to grab the torque converter snout. I don't even want to take this off. I just want to put the new bolts right on. But this thing is going to try and spin when I tighten up the bolts, so I need to figure out some way to block it. So past me took all those bolts and put them in a little bag and labeled them and hid them on the shelf over here for future me to find, and I did. And you can see they're just a little bit shorter than the ones I took out. I'm gonna clean these up and so I can put some blue Loctite on them because I don't ever want them to come out. It would be a lot of work to try to replace them. It's time to put these bolts in, and I've got a little rig over here that'll keep this from spinning, hopefully. If it doesn't work, then I'll go recruit Angela. And I'm supposed to torque these in steps. I think it's 15 foot-pounds, then 37, then 74. My wrench doesn't even go down to 15, so I'll just tighten them up by hand, and then we'll do 37 and 74. I'm also gonna use blue Loctite, so we'll see how all this goes. All right, this isn't working. All right, I'm gonna try this again. I got Angela over here holding the pry bar.
Hi.
This is gonna work. Okay, we're good. Thanks, Ange. All right, I'm gonna fill up this torque converter with a quart or so of fluid and install it here, and then I think this transmission is ready to install. I've got a little bag of O-rings that it came with. I have no idea where they go. I don't really like having extra parts, but what do you do? There's one O-ring on the input shaft, and there's not really a spot for another one. Okay, let me grab some fluid for this. That's gonna percolate for a while. When it's done, I'll try to load it in here. I think that's all done percolating. I'm gonna put it on there now, and they have to go in as far as they can go, and then they have to go a little bit further. Oh, there it is. I told you, you gotta go a little bit further. I like to use this transmission jack to install the transmissions on the ground because it's got a little knob here that'll control the roll and another one here that'll control the pitch. And then with all the casters, you can control the yaw, so I can fly this thing right in there. I gotta get these out of here. These have been kind of a pain, so let me figure these out, then we'll keep going. All right, I got it. Okay, we got rid of that. Back to operation transmission install. Look at that. I just noticed that we got a drain plug in this transmission pan. That's nice. This is where I start using the pitch adjustment and the roll so I can get everything lined up just right, and then it'll slip together. Oh, there it goes. It just slipped. Nice, that was slick. Okay, let's get a bolt or two in. on this side. I still got my super long bar, much cleaner than before. These are going in really easy, which tells me it's lined up good. All right, I got 2 of those hand tight. I'm gonna roll around to the other side and tighten up 2 over there by hand. And then this transmission should just hang there. Scooch over here. Try not to get stabbed in the neck. Oh yeah, this is going together good. All right, I loaded up the bolt. There we go. I should be putting anti-seize on these, but they seem to get transmission fluid on them, or engine oil, because it just seeps out of everything. And so I never have trouble with these seizing up. Okay, that transmission is on. Looks good, real good. Okay, so this one has a little access port over here that I have to use to tighten up the bolts on the flex plate. Right here. The old transmissions had an open belt housing on the bottom. There was a cover down there, but I sometimes never ran them. So right up there is the bolts. The starter fits in right here. These are nice, they're really strong. Somehow I have to play musical jacks, and I have to roll this jack out because I need it for the transfer case, and I need something else up here to support this. So I'll go figure that out. All right, we did it. Sitting on this jack now. My other jack's free, so I can go grab the transfer case. It's a good looking pan. This is a Summit Racing transmission, and I've been impressed with the finish on it. Everything looks really nice. Drain plug, that's super nice. I'm excited to fire this thing up. It's gonna be a while, but I'm still excited. It's time for me to decide how I want to set up this transfer case. The old one was set up with the front output all the way down, so it's more likely to bonk into rocks, but it cleared the bottom of the truck. This one is set up with the front output all the way up, which is safe from rocks, but would probably hit the cab. So I don't think I want it down, I don't want it up, I want it like halfway in between. Kind of like the Noble Duke of York. I need to move all of these studs sticking out of the doubler so they're halfway, and then this is ready to go in. The Noble Duke of York, he had 5,000 men, he marched them up the hill, and then he marched them down again. And when they're up, they're up, and when they're down, and when they're only halfway up, they're neither up nor down. All right, there we go. The studs are all in now, and I cleaned up this adapter in the sink, and I didn't video that because I don't want any evidence of what happened in there, but we can do our last final test fit. That's looking good. Now I can bolt this thing up on the back of the transmission and figure out how this cross member is gonna work. I've got to stop right here for a minute. I need to run a really quick errand over to Kevin's house, grab some parts that came in. Stephen Watson dropped them off there. So I'm gonna go do that, then we'll get right back to this. I'm heading over to Kevin's right now. He just lives a couple miles away from me, and I think he's prepping for a big race. I think he's gonna be running Best in the Desert, the Las Vegas to Reno, Nevada, the big desert race. So I don't know if we'll get to see him or his vehicle, but we'll stop in and check it out, see what's going on. It is very hot out here today. It's got to be over 100 degrees out, and that is going to be a very hot race. I don't know how those guys can do it. It's over 500 miles of racing through the desert. Oh, look, there's a Cybertruck. I just got back. Kevin, I think, was busy getting ready for a race, but he did leave these parts out for me. I picked these up, and these brackets look amazing. They're super heavy. These are the front brackets for the 4-link suspension on Dig Dug, and I think they're gonna be fantastic. Check these things out. Frame side brackets for the upper and lower links. Look how tough those look. And right here, this is for the track bar, and it's got speed holes. Dimple die speed holes. That's awesome. Somehow I need to strap this transfer case onto the jack so that I can tip it sideways and get everything to line up right. That's not gonna work. That's not tipped far enough. I'm gonna level this thing out, unstrap it, and then weld something to this side to prop up this side so that it'll tip even further. and then strap it all back on there and try again. Maybe if I just space it up an inch or two on this edge, that'll work. We'll figure it out. All right, this is looking really good. The jack should have enough tippage so it can get everything lined up. And I've got my output high enough now, it should be out of the way, but low enough that it shouldn't hit the bottom of the truck. So I think this is gonna work. The next thing that I've got to do is bolt this to the back of the transmission, but I don't want to reuse these old seals. So I've got to do a really quick run to the parts store. I'm heading over to O'Reilly's really quick. I'm gonna grab both of those seals, then we'll head back to the shop, see if we can put that together. I picked up my parts, but I forgot to bring in the adapter to test fit them. So I'm gonna try and put them on here really quick and see what they look like. Looks good. All right, that one's gonna work. Let's see about this side. Okay. Right there, that looks like that's gonna work too. All right, those are gonna work. I'm ready to install the adapter now. It is time to roll the transfer case underneath. And I'm not even gonna put the gasket on right now because I'm just test fitting it up. I gotta figure out how to build this cross member and where the rear mount is gonna go. But if I get it bolted into place, all of that should be a little bit easier. Well, that's looking really good. Looks like we're gonna have enough clearance over here. We're not gonna hit anything. That's nice. There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna put on, oh, that stud is not sticking out far enough. Something's fishy. We'll fix that when we take it back apart. Right now, I'm just gonna put on 1 or 2 nuts here to lock it in place so I can figure out the other stuff. Okay, looks like we got good clearance up here. I'm not gonna hit right there. So I've gotta figure out how to do my mount back here. Should I mount off this steel plate? Should I use the old mount off of this adapter? I'm gonna go grab some pieces and fit them up in here and see what I think. This is the old mount that was attached to the transmission adapter that I had here in my shop. And this is a brand new bushing with all the pieces that I could build a mount out of. I'm gonna take both of these underneath the vehicle and figure out which one's gonna work better. So that one would bolt right in there like that. This one, I would probably weld on somewhere, I don't know, in there, in there. So the cross member would have to sit right below this. It's gonna hang down kind of low, but it's gotta hang down lower than the transfer case anyway. I've been down here measuring and I'm definitely gonna go with this for my rear mount. We'll get it mounted somewhere in here. I think I've gained about 1 inch of ground clearance by clocking the transmission up higher, so that'll be great. I've got an idea for a cross member that I'm gonna build in here, and I've already got a good start on it. Let me show you what I did. So I went under my truck like a week ago and I took a bunch of measurements because I knew I was gonna be building this cross member. I just didn't know exactly where it was gonna go. And as I started drawing up all these parts in AutoCAD, I realized that I wanted the holes to fit tighter and I wanted it to be more precise than I was gonna get from my CNC plasma cutter. But that's okay, because I have been watching this company online called SendCutSend, and they have this really cool business model. You drop your own parts, you upload them on their website, you can pick the material you want and whatever you need, how many, and they just ship them back to you. It's really, really simple. So I thought I would give these guys a try. So I pulled out my drawing software and I drew out all these parts that I wanted, and I got the tolerances just right, and I saved these files as DXF files. Then I went to SendCutSend and I pulled up their website. There was just a couple of steps to get these loaded in. It checked the files. It gave me a whole bunch of options for different materials, different thicknesses. There's even a bunch of features I didn't use, like you can do bending or tapping holes or powder coating parts. I selected everything I wanted, I hit send, and my parts came back a couple days later. They are right here in this box, which I haven't opened up yet because I wanted to open them up with you on this video. So here they are. I'm gonna bust this open and we'll see what my stuff looks like. Let's check this out. Check this out. It came with some Zots and Laffy Taffy. I'll read you the joke later. Whoa, man. This is cool. Okay, they're all packaged into this board like they just came from the factory. Okay, I'm gonna open these up so I can see how they fit together. All of these parts are laser cut, which is awesome because those machines are like $500,000. So this company is giving you and me access to this crazy accurate equipment. Oh, wow. I like to round all the corners off in my files so there's tiny little radiuses instead of sharp edges. Check that out. Do the parts fit? Oh, perfectly. Okay, these are gonna weld together beautifully. I have these little drilled, tapped weld washers. We're gonna see if they fit in the hole. I want them to fit really tight. Oh yes, they drop right in and there is no wiggle. So these washers will weld in here, then this plate welds right on there. That's gonna fit good. This goes under there like this. All of this stuff is gonna be super easy to put together because it is so precise. This would have been a really hard job to get under there and make everything line up so this cross member will drop in it out of the frame. Now it's gonna be really easy. So I'm gonna go grab a big chunk of that 2x3 tubing that I've been using for other stuff and chop up a piece of that so I can figure out how all of this is gonna go together. Why do phones ring? Because they can't speak. All right, not their best. All right, this is how it's gonna work. This is where they both fit together, just like that. So this side welds to the frame and this side will weld to the cross member. And then they'll bolt together and be like that. So I've got this piece here. These are what I made the trailing arms out of, and they're really heavy. So this is what I'm gonna make the cross member out of too. So I need to cut it right now down to like frame width, and then I can just go clamp it up there and figure out where to tack this piece on. So let's go chop. My frame's actually 34. I'm gonna chop this about 1 inch short and it'll fit right up in there. I'm gonna try and clamp this up in here. I got some little blocks for spacers that'll get it just the right height, and then we can see about welding in that bushing. Stay. All right, I've got this thing clamped into place and I'm doing a little measuring to make sure it's the same distance back on both sides on the frame. And then I can go ahead and weld this piece in. So I want the back edge to be 9.5 inches. As I measure with chalk, it reminds me of a little saying that the guys at the lab would use. Probably came from the Navy. Measure with a micrometer, mark it with chalk, chop it with an axe. That's what I kind of feel like I'm doing here. That should get us close. I need to make a little spacer to make this sit up higher on the cross member. So I'm gonna cut a piece out really quick, tack this together, and then I can go install it. This should be just the right thickness. I've got this little thing tacked into place. I'm gonna climb up in there and see if I can tack this whole thing onto the transfer case bracket. Here we go. Now that this is tacked in, I can take this whole cross member out. In fact, I can take out the entire transfer case. That'll allow me to get in here on the frame and clean it all up and weld in all those brackets for this cross member. So this thing is coming out. Okay, now I can take out the whole transfer case. Alright, there's one. I only put 2 nuts on here because I knew it was going to come in and out a few times. That's good. There it is. Okay, this whole thing should just slip off backwards now. Okay, coming down. So I pulled this out so that I could get in here and lay down some really good beads on this bracket. And I'm going to disassemble things as I go so I don't burn anything up. This big bracket's ready to weld together. I'm gonna try and keep the beads small so that I don't cover up any of these holes. I've also got these weld nut insert things that are gonna weld into these holes, and the fit is amazing. I burned these in really hot and that made it warp just a little bit, and I thought about fixing it, but I think these are gonna make the transmission cross member go in even easier. The old one was kind of hard to install and hard to remove because they were tipped a little bit, so things didn't want to drop straight down. So I think these will work to my advantage. I'm gonna leave it alone, and while this paint is drying over here, I'm gonna go back under the truck and remove all the paint and prep everything, get it all sanded so I can weld all these brackets into the frame. Check this out over here. Steven stopped by while I was in the middle of a weld, and I'm gonna show you really quick what he brought over. Steven dropped off the last 2 brackets that I need for the 4-link suspension that's going on the front. They're kind of complicated pieces, and they just weld onto the axle, and that'll allow me to attach both my shocks and both the lower and upper links and a track bar. So there's a lot going on with these brackets. They're gonna save me a ton of time putting this front 4-link together. That's gonna happen in a week or 2, so I'm just showing you the future. That's not exactly where they go, but something like that. So I've been down here marking out where these things are gonna go, and I'm gonna clean up all the paint now, so that when I bomb these things in, they'll just be rock solid. And I'll probably do a little of that weld through primer just to make sure it doesn't rust up super fast. So lots of cleanup to do down here. On this side, I undid this brake line and the brake fluid dripped down here all along the frame. So the paint just peeled right off, nice and easy. Things are looking pretty good down here. I've got most of the paint removed, so I'm gonna start fitting up pieces and see how it goes together. All right, I'm test fitting these plates up in here and they're fitting really good. I don't wanna tip them in because that'll make the cross member hard to remove, so I wanna tip them out just a little bit. This side's looking good too. Time to weld everything in. I forgot to weld up this bushing, so I'm gonna do that really quick before I roll the machine under there. And I'm almost out of gas, so hopefully I have enough to get this done. It seems like you can be on 0 for a long time with these though. So I like to run them all the way down so I get my money's worth out of every tank. So I'm just gonna keep on going until it runs out. Hopefully I've got enough to finish. I don't know. I don't think 0 really means 0 with these. It's kind of like the gas gauge in your car. You can still go a pretty good ways.
I think it's ridiculous that a guy of TomTom's caliper would run out of gas.
I almost forgot the weld through primer. I'm gonna do that really quick first. Then while it dries, I can eat a PBJ. Then we can get back in here and finish the welding. I'm getting everything lined up right now. These are finally ready to weld in. I've got this piece marked out right here so I know where to cut it, and then I can test fit it. I'll keep grinding it until it's just right, and then we can tack it in. I did a quick test fit and this cross member is gonna fit up there nice and tight. I'm gonna chamfer all the edges really quick where I'm welding. This cross member is made of a 1/4 inch thick steel and I want it to be super strong. So I'm gonna go around and chamfer all the edges on this before I weld it so those welds will penetrate all the way through. I've got this mounted up in here now. I'm gonna tack it in, but kind of heavy tacks, so I can come in with the transfer case and test fit everything. There it goes. Woo. I've got a few big welds on this cross member now. It's strong enough to hold up this transfer case. I'll finish welding up the whole thing next time it comes out. That was a lot of work to swap in the guts from the wrecker into Dig Dug. But it's gonna pay off because between the off-road doubler and the transfer case and then the Summit Racing transmission, there will be 16 different gear ratio combinations from low to overdrive. The parts from SendCutSend were a huge help today, and you should definitely check them out if you have any kind of fabrication work coming up in the future. If you don't know how to draw parts on your computer, you should still check out their website because they have links to different software you can use and tutorials on how to use them. There's lots more to do on this drivetrain to get this vehicle up and running, But that's all I've got time for today. Thanks for watching.